it's a powerful thing. We do not exist in a community alone, and when the community gets wealthier in a way that we can sustain, we are going to get wealthier as a collective. And I'm not saying that like
we live in a society.
I'm not saying as like a ridiculous communist. I'm a hardcore capitalist. Y'all know me, but I'm down to make everybody wealthier. I'm not sure if you are, but that's something that sounds good on my radar.
Doesn't sound good to say no.
Yes, let's make people poor.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with the next one, next strategy is to attract remote workers. I'm not really sure. I just saw this one on there. I think remote workers is cool because just, more people working there, they're paying into your local government. But I've always found that I'm more productive if I'm on site. That's just me. I
would argue that there's a certain pie of the American economy that can be subsidized by remote work, that can be taken advantage of with remote work, with telework. To be honest, a lot of government work could be made telework, and it would be totally fine.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of jobs that require you to be on site as a matter of efficiency, or just as a matter of basic productivity. So in moving forward, whatever slices of the pie that could turn remote, we've seen a lot of them already turn remote through the coronavirus crisis. What's your take on that?
Let me throw a scary proposition out there. Every time
Absolutely.
every time I hear telework or remote work, I believe that 9 times out of 10, that is an easy bid into automation. And that is unemployment for human beings. And not to say maybe it is a bad thing. Maybe it's not. But I think that's a direct correlation there. If your job can be done remotely, if you as a person your talent is not needed on site, it can most likely be automated well enough to where you don't really need a human being to do it, or you can have one person taking over 8 others' job. Right? That is direct line to the unemployment, which I believe are we experiencing that today? Have we recovered from the COVID unemployment thing?
No, we're not seeing it as much today as we could or should, simply because robotic development isn't something that a lot of companies have invested in the United States, as they have in other locations out of necessity. I talked about Japan last week, and Japan has to invest in robotic development because, well, they don't just have a consumption base and a productive base to compensate for the loss of people that they've suffered. So they have to invest in robotics.
Yeah.
For the United States, as our younger demographics get smaller and smaller, and to be fair, we're about 60 years behind Japan, 40 to 60 years. So it's something that we're going to move to more and more in the future.
Thank God they're dependent upon us.
Yeah, it's really it's a bit of a scary situation. But in addition to what Grant is saying about robotic development, I actually did a presentation on this for the Richard Nixon Library back in 2017, where I discussed on a panel with a bunch of my peers who are ranging from neuroscience to government grads. We were discussing the development of robotic systems in a workplace environment, and the unfortunate reality that I was faced with. And I was asked this question point blank from a woman. She said, I work on hiring teachers, and I can't imagine how my job would be done by an AI. And my first reaction, I obviously didn't say this to her, but my first reaction was, really? You can't imagine that? I'm sorry, you literally just have to weigh all the metrics on a specific scale and then use an AI to determine which of those metrics it deems to be most important and a value scheme accordingly. So hiring becomes, you have one person doing a final review of the metrics that an AI has given them.
Most of the pairing can be done by an automated system, but at the end of the day, you need at least one person at the top or something.
But that's just it. Instead of needing 20, 30, 40 people to review hiring teachers in California, maybe even 50 or 100 people to review hiring teachers in California, now you need a handful. So yeah, you still will need some people to do the essential work, but you will need far fewer, because now you just need people to administrate the work that the AI does. Yeah. So just in reference for a lot of these jobs, if it can go remote, that means it can start going AI with having a few people at the top administrate it. And that's a terrifying reality.
Yeah. Well, sorry, to jump into our last initiative.